generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. This is our first Shoot the Sheev of 2024. We are back and ready to go ahead and deliver some more Star Wars podcast content. Excuse me. And so we're going to kick it off with something that I think is pretty interesting. It's one of those things that probably slipped through the cracks for a lot of people. Like if you didn't hear about it or you weren't seeking it out, you probably don't know about it. And that is there is a documentary that dropped, I want to say either this month or last month. That was very recent. It was called A Disturbance in the Force. And this documentary is about the Star Wars Holiday Special. We are big fans of the Holiday Special. We watch it every year. Is the movie horrible? Absolutely. But to us, it's so bad that it's good. So,
It's a special tradition.
it is. And honestly, as of late, because the holiday special came out in 1978, a lot of the people that grew up with the holiday special are now working on Star Wars projects today, like Jon Favreau, for example, and they are, putting things that they were a fan of the holiday special in their current projects. So, if you know this piece of history, then you start to pick up on other things that, are happening in Star Wars today. Prime example, the Mandalorian's, famous rifle. That was from the holiday special. I think it was the first episode of The Mandalorian ever. What was his name? The blue guy. He referenced Life Day, which was from the holiday special. So, it's becoming much more popular nowadays than it was back then. But this is a documentary that, interviews a lot of people that are still, very much involved with Hollywood today, people that grew up with it, that were probably kids back then and now they're adults, they can talk about it. And there's also people that worked on the project that are interviewed in this film. It is a 90-minute film, and honestly, it was pretty good. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about, all the different things that they cover in it, some of the good stuff, some of our critiques about it, and just, let you know whether it's something that you should go out and watch. First, I want to mention what's the price tag? Is it actually worth it? Because I actually bought it. I don't think it's available on streaming services. I don't think it's on Disney Plus or anything like that. Maybe in the future, but it was only $10, so super cheap. If you even get it on sale, that's even better. But we bought it on Vudu. I think it's on Amazon Prime as well. So it's definitely available and out there for you. Again, hour and a half. Like I said, it's a documentary about the holiday special. Lots of people that were involved. So I think it was worth it. I think it was worth the $10 for the information that we got. Was it all 100% good information? I think that's debatable. There was a good, for the first third of this documentary where, when we were learning about a lot of the people that were going to be in the interview processes, which I want to name a handful of these so you can kind of get an idea of who is actually involved with these interviews. Bruce Valanche, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He actually worked on the holiday special. Kevin Smith, popular name. Weird Al, Mick Garris, Donny Osmond, Jason Lindsay, Seth Green, Taron Killam, Gilbert Gottfried was a surprising one that was in the interviews because he passed away. Well, now it's 2024, so technically, 2 years ago. Um, but he made it into this, so he must have filmed this like right before he passed away, which is crazy. It's one of his last things that he's, credited for. Paul Scheer, Kyle Newman, just a handful of big names. Bonnie Burton, uh,
Patton Oswald.
Patton Oswalt. Yep, that's another big one. He
And who's the robot chicken guy?
Seth Green. Yeah, I already said him.
Okay. Sorry, I missed it.
And they were all. I would say Seth Green is probably one of the more popular people that is on the interview screen most of the time. But Bruce Valanche is in a lot of it too because he was actually working on the holiday special. Um, I would say Bruce was giving more of the what happened back then, and Seth Green is giving more of, hey, we were working on some projects with George and we were having conversations and I just had to poke at him about the holiday special and see what he thought, kind of a thing. And then that's kind of how he was reflecting on, talking from the man himself, George, how the holiday special came to be and, all that good stuff. So those are a whole bunch of names that are available from the interviews. But one of my criticisms is that for like the first 30 minutes or so, when we're learning about who's going to be talking about this special, it's like a 20 to 30 minutes of just bagging on the holiday special. Like literally everybody had to say their version of how terrible it was. Were you getting that same vibe?
To some extent, but I guess I found it more comical than annoying, which is what it sounds like you were getting from that.
I mean, a couple, sure, but I mean, they even say in the documentary themselves, it's like super cliche to just bag on the holiday special. Like it's something that people do just to do because they think it's the cool thing to do, kind of a thing. And so I kind of feel like that's what they were going for with that. But I just think it was maybe a little bit too much. Me being the Star Wars nerd, I was like, come on, can we just get into the nitty gritty? I want to learn, why was this thing made? Who made it? What were the decisions? How did we get to this place? Um, so I would say the first 20 to 30 minutes was pretty much like that. But then we do get into some good stuff. We do start to learn about, the holiday special. Why was it a thing? Why was it even brought up? So it's no secret that Star Wars was huge, back when it came out. We learned from the documentary that the marketing person for Star Wars was like doing a lot of heavy pitching for Star Wars in like 1976, showing things at different Comic Cons, like Star Trek gatherings and whatnot. And eventually that built some enough hype where, people were like, okay, let's go see this Star Wars thing. And then once people saw the Star Wars, they were like, this is amazing. And the problem is that I guess the people that felt that they knew better than everybody else, like from the outside looking in, from as much as I hear people say that they thought Star Wars was the best thing that's ever come out, I'm shocked to hear that people felt that Star Wars would lose its steam and that when Empire came out, nobody would care about it. I find that hard to believe. I don't know about you. Um, But basically, they were saying, "Oh, go ahead."
I was just gonna say, well, with us, when the sequel trilogy, for example, because that came out during a time when we were alive and really interested in Star Wars and stuff. Like I know the prequel trilogy came out and you were really into that, but I was a little too young and just not familiar enough with Star Wars, so that's why I'm not focusing on that one. But so thinking about the sequel trilogy, and we watched the first one of the three movies, we were really excited for the next one, but we'd had all that history of other Star Wars films and media, whereas with this one, it was the first one. So they only had that one movie, not decades of history with it. So I think that could be part of it too.
Yeah, definitely. I know they were talking about like before Star Wars came out, the next biggest movie was like Jaws, and so and Jaws eventually had a sequel too. It makes me wonder, like after listening to all the stuff at which I'm going to talk about in a minute, but after listening about all the different things that they were saying about Star Wars losing steam, it makes me wonder if they did anything for Jaws. Like, was there anything in between one and two that they promoted and did other things for, or did they just straight make the next movie and then eventually it came out? That'd be something to look into. But they were talking about how when Star Wars came out, it made tons of money. It was the biggest new phenomenon. And eventually they thought it would lose some steam. And like I said, by the time Empire comes out, they felt that nobody would care about it. And basically, Empire wouldn't be as successful. And so they wanted to have some sort of media in between the films to, keep people's attention. Well, this wasn't the only thing that they tried doing. There was also other people that were just having random Star Wars themes on their variety shows. One of the big ones that they talked about was Donny Osmond's. I think it was Donnie and Marie. I think the name of the show was
I think so.
how they had dancing stormtroopers and stuff like that all on the show. There's a handful of others, of course, too, but that one comes to mind right away. But Star Wars was all over the variety shows. You saw Vader and all them doing very weird things. That hindsight is 2020. That stuff seems very out of character. Why would you be doing that? Like, even nowadays, when the sequel trilogy came out, we didn't see Kylo Ren on Dancing with the Stars or something like that, where it would be ridiculous. So
That's one of the things that I feel like this documentary did well, was even just explaining what is a variety show, because to a lot of people it's probably obvious. They grew up with it, it's a no-brainer. But to the more recent generations where they didn't grow up with that, we may have had similar things, but it certainly wasn't like it used to be back then. So just understanding where they came from, because a lot of the people that worked on the holiday special were people who came from variety show productions. So just to even understand that base knowledge, that was something that I really didn't have for all these years that we've been watching the holiday special, that now it makes a lot of other things make more sense in the holiday special. You know what I mean?
yeah, and to that point, they actually talked about, who was the people in charge of the holiday special. So like, there's plenty of the other variety shows, but there's also like the main one we're talking about today with the holiday special. They were talking about, with the people in charge who was working on it. There was something like there was like three Lucasfilm people that were a part of it, not including George. He was part of like the very first meeting when he was like, this is kind of my idea. Just coming off of the most recent Star Wars. This is maybe where it would go in between that film and Empire. And then the rest of it was up to the trusted variety show brains. Like they basically brought in, from what I understand, the best of the best in creating variety shows of the time. And then it was their job to make this new holiday special. What was kind of interesting about it, though, is I I think it was Bruce in the interview mentioned that, the people that were brought on for this variety show, like the people that were making it, um, they weren't even 100% sure that everybody had seen the original Star Wars. It was just we know how to write a variety show. How can we put like the Star Wars skin, so to speak, onto a variety show and then make it work? So I find that interesting because if I remember correctly from uh, Star Wars Celebration, I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago. I don't remember when it was. It was the last one when they were talking about Star Wars Acolyte, which is, I think, supposed to come out this year or next year. How a lot of the people hadn't seen Star Wars and they told the people to specifically not watch Star Wars. And it's like, I really hope we don't get that same effect here where it really seems like they're out of touch. So I hope that doesn't end up being the case. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we
so
We not to get too far down that rabbit trail, but wasn't that our one of our biggest problems with what was it, the Inquisitor?
Yeah, they told the actor to not like they told him who the character was like, but they didn't want him to go and watch the show and try to just emulate what was on the show. And it's like, well, if you just emulate what's on the show, you make all the fans happy. Why? Because it connects. Duh.
Yeah.
um, but anyways, so
Thinking about the holiday special, they had so many changes of focus
yeah.
from who's a part of it, who's directing it, how long is the show going to be? I think one of the things that this documentary mentioned is that it was a typical variety show was about an hour, I believe, for that time. And so they were going to do that. Then they thought, well, let's maybe stretch it to 90 minutes. Well, let's maybe stretch it to 2 hours. And do you know what the runtime is of the actual, like where they ended?
I believe it's a 90-ish minute film. Maybe hour and 15. I
I'm
don't know.
double checking here.
We watch the version with commercials sometimes, so it kind of gets out of whack.
This is true. Just from a first glance Google search, it says 2 hours.
Okay.
But
That
that's probably including those commercials, but there really aren't that many commercials.
I think the
Uh,
back of our DVD says 97 or 90-ish minutes.
okay,
So I would say it's around there. It's
somewhere in that realm.
definitely more than an hour, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like it's 2 hours, but have you ever wondered what it's like to grow up during the prequel era? Do you wonder what type of merchandise was around then? How different was it than it is now? Check out our videos on this channel where we talk about the merchandise of the Phantom Menace and the merchandise of Attack of the Clones. They are here on this channel. The Phantom Menace is my first video ever on YouTube, so there's a special place in my heart for that one, so please, if any, check that out. Now back to our show. Okay, so yeah, we were talking about, there's a crew of the people that were known for variety shows, and then there was a handful of people from Lucasfilm. And what was interesting is that the director was from Lucasfilm, and they said like he tried making a handful of things for this project, and then eventually he just got canned, like he got fired. And so he left the project. And then there was like two people left from Lucasfilm, and eventually, like almost all the people from Lucasfilm dipped, and then just said, "Here, it's on you, variety show people, make what you can." And uh, basically, what they did is they came together, thought of who would be good for a variety special show, like as far as actors and actresses, and then put something together. And obviously, it's what we have today. Some of the people that they mentioned that they wanted, but they didn't get, one of them was Cher. Cher was supposed to be a part of it. If you've seen the holiday special, it's the section where Itchy has the like virtual reality adult film that he's watching. It was supposed to be Cher instead, but again, they had the current act.
Using that term very loosely, it's just a lady singing and maybe talking a little more adult topic, but it's not, it's a very loose, like it's not,
She's talking very suggestively.
yeah, we'll put it at that.
And even at that, there's the parts where Itchy is like hitting rewind, rewind, so that she keeps saying certain things to him. It's a very interesting part where, if you're watching it with kids, they won't get it. They'll probably wonder, why can't we just move on and see, Luke and Han and all that. But as
Well,
an adult,
that part he's rewinding is her saying, "I find you adorable." Like it's said a little suggestively, but it's not really that bad of a line if just don't read too far into it.
right. It's one of those things where if you're an adult, you kind of chuckle about it, but kids really won't pick up on it.
Mhm.
Um, So yeah, that was one of the big actresses that was supposed to be a part of it, that ended up not being in it. They talked a lot about what was his name, the guy that plays the inventor dude and the whip whipster guy.
Ooh, oh, I can't. I was thinking of the Robin Williams part. We'll get to that in a minute, but Star Wars Holiday Special. If I look at the cast, we Art Carney. That's who it is.
Art Carney.
Art Carney.
So they focused on him quite a bit. It was
He was
interesting.
apparently a really well-known actor back in the day. I had no idea.
Yeah, I had no clue about it, about who he was or anything else that he would have been in because like there's some actors and actresses in here that was not part of the original Star Wars that it's like, oh, I know them, like B. Arthur. Recognize her right away from Golden Girls. But yeah, I did not recognize that dude at all. And he's pretty big in this. He plays a handful of different characters. Did you want to talk about the Robin Williams part?
Yeah, B. Arthur was not in Golden Girls for several years because that show didn't come out until 1985. So
Oh,
this was before that.
wow. Interesting.
But yeah, so do you remember what role it was that they were looking at him for potentially?
I thought it was that guy's
For the inventor?
like that character's role. I thought it was that one. But
Yeah,
I
you might
I
be
don't
right.
remember 100%.
Well, anyway, one of the things that they mentioned in this documentary is taking a look at different comedy clubs or improv clubs and trying to see who might be like an up and comer to be able to get for this. And so Robin Williams was one of the ones that they had thought about, but they wanted somebody that was a little more recognizable or maybe a little more well known. And so that's when they went with, I think, Art Carney, if we're talking about the correct role here,
I'm pretty sure.
instead. But then he went Robin Williams shortly after this went on to do the Mork and Mindy show. So
Then
he
he
became
blew up.
very well known, very famous not long after this.
So maybe if that show had come out a little bit earlier, maybe we would have had Robin Williams in Star Wars, which would have been amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was gonna. Oh, another thing that they were talking about, with these head honchos or top of the line variety show brains working on this special. One of the things that I really didn't piece together until someone just blatantly said it was how many of the big stars are older people. Like there really wasn't any young actors and actresses that were filling some of these roles. I think arguably probably the youngest people on the show were the main people from Star Wars, like Harrison Ford, um,
Mark Hamill
Mark
and Carrie
Hamill.
Fisher.
All those people are probably the youngest people on set, just looking at all the people that were there.
Yeah.
So they kind of had like a connection to the audience issue with that. Um,
Do you want to take a moment to talk about Mark's makeup? Because I'm not sure if I found that part of the documentary fully believable.
yeah, so there's this discussion about so Star Wars came out, the original, and then when they were making Empire Strikes Back, Mark Hamill got in an accident, and it, gave him some visually uh,
Some
scarring,
facial scarring.
facial scarring issues that, really wouldn't be explainable for what happened in Star Wars. And so, in Empire, we have the Wampa thing that happens, even though one of the interviewers claims it wasn't the car accident that caused all this, which I kind of don't believe. Um, Basically, Mark Hamill had a lot of makeup on for his role in this holiday special. And what's interesting is they say, as the video gets more and more bootlegged or copied, they say that he looks even more and more like he has makeup on. So one of the people was saying that
Because of the color distortion.
yeah, they say the amount of makeup that he was wearing really wasn't representative of what we see on film, which again, I don't really know how much of that I believe. Like he looks
Well,
strikingly different.
more what I was trying to get at is that we always thought it was because of that car accident that that's why he had so much makeup on. But what they were trying to say in the documentary is that so many of the people in charge of this film were from variety shows where for regular TV shows, you cake on that makeup for these shows.
Hmm.
And so when you have a makeup artist from a normal variety show where they're used to caking on the makeup, that's why he had so much extra makeup. But what I find kind of fishy about that explanation is we didn't really see that with Carrie Fisher or Harrison Ford. They looked pretty normal like themselves compared to Mark, who looked like his face was rubber because it was so caked. There was
Yeah.
just so much.
Yeah, I think Carrie Fisher looked a little bit like she had a bit of makeup, but yeah, Harrison Ford didn't look like he had a whole lot, but I don't know. Maybe that was just a thing back then. I do know they also were talking about how like the main actors and actresses, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and all them, really didn't want to do this. Like they were very against the holiday special when it was first being talked about. They kind of, felt like the movie that they just made, that this is not very representative of what it was, and it would kind of deter a bit from it. Like it's somewhat ripping it off kind of a thing. Like it's only going to be watched because it has Star Wars attached to it.
Well, and it could be damaging to their careers. At that point in time, they didn't know what their future held.
Right. And like they even have Mark Hamill saying like, I'm not going to do it. Okay, well, I'll do it, but I ain't going to sing. Because, Carrie Fisher ends up singing in this film at the very end. So um, maybe they actually had a singing part for him at first and they had to cut it. Who knows? I don't know.
That would have been something.
Yeah, it would. It would have been very interesting to see all of them like in some sort of Star Wars musical. Like, what is wrong with people? Um, yeah, so they were a lot of issues that were to be had when making this special. Even like the actors and actresses when they were, doing scenes and putting things together, they were talking about how things just were just so weird. They didn't make any sense. Why are we doing this? One of the spots that they specifically talked about, it was the actor that you mentioned. I forgot his name already.
Art
Art
Carney.
Art Karn. It was when he is in the cantina and he's like trying to smooge B. Arthur's character a little bit, and he's like drinking through the top of his head. He thought that the whole idea of a lot of these things was super out there. Another thing that was really brought up was, if this is supposed to be there's like conflicting things that are happening here, whether or not this is canon to people. George was talking about how, you know, after the original, everybody got their medals. Chewie didn't get one because Chewie didn't want one, but maybe uh, what would happen is that his reward is that Han is going to take him to Kashyyyk for Life Day. And so that's kind of where this premise comes into play. So it is taking place after the original. But when you go to the cantina scene, for example, there's a couple of characters in there that were killed in the original Star Wars film. So it's like, are these the same characters? They look the same. They're wearing the exact same clothing. We know that from the behind the scenes point of view, they literally just went into the costume room from the original and just grabbed a whole bunch of things and, put literally everybody that was in the original cantina in this one. But yeah, it didn't care about the continuity. It's like, again, it goes back to did the variety show people actually watch Star Wars? Do they know who these people are? I
To
mean,
know that those characters are dead, you mean?
yeah, I mean, the guy that gets his arm chopped off in the original, they call him like Walrus Face or something. Like, that's not his real name. I know that for a fact because we have his Black Series figure. It does not say Walrus Face on there. Have you seen The Mandalorian? Do you wonder what Operation Cinder was that they mentioned in this show? Well, we got you covered because we have an entire playlist dedicated to the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign, which highlights Operation Cinder. So if you check out our playlist, you'll be able to see what actually happened with Operation Cinder and know what they're talking about with the show. Now back to ours.
of the other interesting things that I learned about the cantina scene was those costumes were so hot with like no ventilation that apparently they had major filming issues because people kept passing out from the heat of the costumes, just getting that heat exhaustion. So that was a pretty tough series to film in that cantina scene.
Which is interesting because, like, if you think about it, like, if you look at the scene, I mean, I know nothing about Hollywood, okay? I don't know how many takes. Like, they say they took hours and hours to film this scene, and it's like maybe 10 minutes. Um, to me, it's like, how long does it take to film that thing? Like, get the choreography down, have everybody show up, and then do the thing. And
Well, if you're doing, because I think they were trying to get multiple cameras in there at once, or maybe this was for the treehouse scene, I'm not sure which. They were trying to do more. A variety show would be doing it once and having multiple cameras, right? But doing a movie, you do it multiple times from multiple different camera angles because you don't want the camera to be in the background of the shot.
mhm.
So I think they were having that kind of power struggle between how do we film it the least amount of times, but we're not doing a traditional variety show. So like, we can't just have the camera in the background of it because it's still a movie.
Right. Yeah, I get it. I just with how low quality it is, sometimes it's hard to look at it and be like, you put how much time into that? Kind of a thing. I mean, they said the budget was $1 million, and back then $1 million was a lot of money. So, like, more than
They
it is.
also they also talked about it being so low budget that for some of the scenes they couldn't do like for the very end with all the candles that they didn't even have budget to edit that in, that they went to like every prop shop around just to buy physical candles and spent like over an hour lighting all these candles for the effect. You would think it'd be a lot easier to just edit that in, but even back then, because it's something that's pretty simple. But they, I guess, were that tight of a budget.
Which is interesting to me because before we watched the documentary, I thought those were a bunch of stars. Like it was a galaxy or a portal type thing where we're seeing, the cosmos and everything from their little party. But they're actually candles. So it makes me wonder if there's supposed to be candles in the show.
I think it would make sense for them to be stars, but how do you make a star without editing it in?
I don't know, get a whole bunch of those glow in the dark ones you put in your ceiling. Have the lights
That would be
on.
a very different look, okay? First of all, those usually look green. They never shine yellow. I should know I had some on my bedroom ceiling as a child.
With their budget, the filming wouldn't even matter. It would just look like a bunch of spots, just like it did in the other film.
Thought it was interesting how little, and I don't want to dive too much into the actual show itself because I know we've done a shoot the sheave about the holiday special before, or at least a discussion on it. So if you haven't seen that already, go check that out. But one thing I want to touch on, while we're talking about the documentary is our main stars. Yes, they reprised their roles, but they really weren't in it very much. There was so much of all these new characters.
Yeah, my guess is they probably showed up like maybe 1 or 2 days worth of filming for this. Um, I mean, the reason why I say that is because they were talking about how the cantina scene took like 1 or 2 days. Well, if that much time is what it takes to do for that stuff, then maybe that's how the other ones worked out too. But uh, yeah, Luke had his little thing, Leia had her little thing. Han had some stuff throughout. One of the other interesting things about it is if you don't know about the holiday special, one of the ways that they cut corners was for filming is they stripped film from the original. And so when they needed to make some scenes that weren't part of the original, of course, which some of them were ones with the Millennium Falcon cockpit, they were showing in this documentary that the one that they made for the documentary, which was way lower budget than the original, um, they didn't even have like a floor. Like Chewbacca's feet were through the bottom of the platform. It was just dangling there. There wasn't a floor. So it just goes to show how cheap it was. And bless the fact that their cameras weren't 4K back then, because it probably would have looked like a paper mache version of what it originally was, just based on the budget. So
Yeah.
just a couple other little interesting ways of how they cut some corners with their costs.
One of the other things that I just thought of was the cartoon part of this holiday special. So, if you've seen the holiday special, you know what cartoon part I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it for some reason, which I would be a little surprised if this was your first introduction to the holiday special, but kudos to you for doing some research first. Uh, this little cartoon part is something that Lumpy, Chewbacca's kid, is watching like on a TV basically, and it's about Luke and Han getting this like dizzy sickness that only affects humans, right? And Boba's there to uh supposedly help them, but of course, he's his own man, so he's a little suspicious with his dealings with Darth Vader and stuff. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at is the art style for this cartoon is very, very strange. Um, I always laugh when I see Han Solo in this art style because he's basically he's got his eyes missing. He almost doesn't even have eyes because of the way that they're drawn. They like squished his face up some really strange way, like compared to the other characters. But one thing that I learned from this documentary compared to, just watching it through a normal watch through is that these same cartoon designers, there's probably a better word for that. Jeremy, correct me if you know what I'm talking about. But they went on to make like the Ewok special and the droid special. Is that what it is?
Yep, those were two of the specials that came out later with uh I think there were like a starting movie and then like seasons of the show afterwards.
Yeah. Which I'd never those art styles look very similar, even if you just look at like the covers of the VHS for those. But I'd never put one and two together that it was like made by the same people, like that the art style is actually the exact same because it's the same people behind it. So that was kind of a fun fact.
Yeah, and I hadn't known that. We actually haven't seen the Ewok show and the Droid show all the way through. It's on our to-do list, of course, but haven't seen those yet. I look forward to them now that I kind of have that connection, because watching the holiday special, that's actually my favorite part, is the little animated section. And it's actually probably the most popular part because it's the one part that is actually available on Disney Plus. So if you want to watch the little like 10, 15-minute animated part of it where it's the first appearance of Boba Fett, you can actually access that on Disney Plus. I think it's in the vintage section. It's the same area where you'd find the droids and Ewok cartoon as well. But it makes me more excited to go ahead and watch those, because watching that special, I was like, I want more of this. Why didn't we get more Star Wars shows like this? And apparently there is. I'm just oblivious.
Yeah. But speaking of Disney Plus, they talked a little bit about at least some people's opinions on why this is not on Disney Plus, and some of the other people were responding as to why they think it should be on Disney Plus. Jeremy, what is your opinion?
I don't think they should put it on Disney Plus. There's some things about the holiday special that I think that they should, embrace, which they already do. If you go to the Disney parks around the November, December time, they celebrate Life Day. Life Day is November 17. That is basically the Wookiee holiday Life Day. Uh, so they embrace that. They have the robes. I know we bought the robes when they were heavily discounted after the holiday season last year. Supposedly they have a vintage collection Black Series figure of Chewie or one of the Ewok or one of the Wookiees in the Life Day robe um, at the Disney parks. So you can get little things here and there, but as far as like releasing the whole thing, I know me when I first bought this movie, uh, it was it was cool, and it still feels cool to be like, you can't get this anywhere. Like you can't go on Disney Plus, you can't go to Best Buy, you can't go to Amazon, you can't go anywhere except for like Etsy, which is where I got mine, and buy a copy of the holiday special. So there's a special feeling, which some of the people in the documentary talked about as well. There's this special feeling of having a bootleg copy or having, something that you're not supposed to have, and it gives it a little bit extra special feeling to it. And I would agree with that. I feel like if it's put out there in Disney Plus, it's just going to be a cash grab for Disney Plus. And honestly, if they're looking for some sort of Hail Mary to save them, because I know they're kind of hurting a little bit, that ain't the one. That ain't the one. I feel like
One
the
of my
people,
favorite. Go
I was,
ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like the people that want to watch the holiday special can definitely get access to it. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. I don't know who the person was that uploaded it, but somebody uploaded the whole thing onto YouTube for people to watch. So if you really want to watch it, just go ahead and find it.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of the things that I really like about watching the holiday special is if you just watch it over and over and over, it gets old very fast. But one of my favorite things to do each year, if possible, doesn't always work out, but finding somebody who hasn't seen it yet and being able to share it. And because we have that like quote unquote bootleg copy, it makes you feel like you're sharing something that uh not everybody has access to. And even though it's not something that's like the greatest show ever, it's still kind of special to bond over that thing that's not widely available. Like let's watch this thing. It's really rare and hard to find, and of course watching their reactions for the first time as they see all these things happen. That's fun. That's fun for me. um this past year we did that with watching it with my mom because she'd never seen it before, and so I don't know, I like having that rarity to it.
Unfortunately, a lot of times after it's over, they're like, "Well, I won't get that hour and a half of my life back." But um, you know, people know, they at least know me as like the Star Wars nerd, and they're like, "Oh, you got a piece of Star Wars that I haven't seen before? Let's check this out." And then they see it and they're like, "Oh, let's see if I trust you again." I mean, we kind of did that with the Ewok specials of the Caravan of Courage and whatnot too. What I had not seen those films beforehand, so that I couldn't attest to. That was all new to me as well. Um, what do you think? Should it be on Disney Plus?
I don't think so. I like having that rarity to it and having it be something that's kind of a little hard to find, and it makes it a little extra special.
Yeah, and we got a really nice, like whoever made mine, which I got years and years ago, whoever
Off
made
of
it,
Etsy.
huh?
Off of Etsy, right?
Right. But whoever made it, it's a really nice copy. Like it's what I would expect to come from a distributor. It's really nice. Do you enjoy taking a look at Black Series figure collections? Well, then we have a playlist for you. We take a look at all the newest Star Wars Black Series figures that we can get our hands on and share them with you. So if you enjoy those types of videos, make sure to check out our playlist that goes over the Star Wars Black Series figures in our collection, and you will not be disappointed. So check those out. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. I was telling Sarah about, if they just made a Black Series figure set with like Lumpy, Itchy, Mala, and Chewie or something, maybe have the little toy table or accessories of the different toys that they had in this special in
I
one
gotta
big
have my
package.
Whip Whip Stir Lady.
Yeah, you can even have that character, like all these unique characters to the holiday special. I feel like if they did like a little Black Series figure run of them, they can make some serious money because, the collectors will want these. I can't tell you how many times there are Black Series figures that come out And like I know they're out and I just can't find them because the collectors are gobbling them up. You can't tell me this wouldn't happen with the holiday special stuff. Well, truth be told, supposedly there was supposed to be a holiday special lineup of figures that was supposed to come out with this show. And I think they said the only one that actually made it was the Boba Fett figure. There was supposed to be the famous Boba Fett figure that came out with the rocket that would launch, but it was deemed not safe for children because of choking hazards. And so they had to go in and basically glue the rockets to all of the Boba Fett figures. So that's kind of where, that whole Boba Fett figure discussion came from, was right here in the bridge between Holiday Special and Empire Strikes Back, because actually Boba Fett's figure came out before Empire Strikes Back came out, which it seemed from the interview people that seemed like a rare thing to happen, or maybe like something that just didn't happen back then. Because like when promotional stuff came out for The Force Awakens, for example, literally almost all the figures that came out in the first set, aside from, like Finn and maybe Rey, there's a lot of characters that came out that we knew nothing about, but we saw them and they weren't in the previews. And so it makes me wonder if back then that was not practiced as much, to have, action figures come out of characters that we hadn't quite seen on film yet.
Yeah, it was neat. If you go and watch that documentary, you get to see their prototypes of what the characters would look like. And the type of action figures from back then were very kind of like all the general same body type or body shape. So it didn't really matter how big a character was, because in this type of action figure, everybody is like skinny mini. So if you think about like how giant Chewbacca is compared to like Leia, well, in these action figures, they're like the same size. They might be a little taller or shorter, but think of like how much extra fur Chewbacca has that wasn't really accurately portrayed because of just the limitations of that style of action figure. So seeing the different, I almost said Chewbaccan, excuse me, seeing the different Wookiees in in this action figure where they're all like super skinny. They don't really have a whole lot of definition to how much fur they have, other than some like wavy texture to it. It just they looked ridiculous to me. It was funny.
Yeah, and what I also thought was interesting too, to kind of expand on that, was, there was the three adults. There's Chewbacca, Mala, and Itchy, and then there's Lumpy. Lumpy was a smaller action figure, but the three adults were basically the same mold, but with a slightly different paint, except Mala had boobs. So, I mean, Mala had a little bit of extrudedness on her chest, but otherwise they were the exact same things, just with a little bit of different pinks. I'm pretty sure Itchy's was like Chewbacca's figure, but with gray face, because, he had gray fur. Because that was the only spot that was actually gray. It was a little weird.
Yeah, which if you think of the actual characters, Mala really doesn't have that much definition to make her feminine, compared to the action figures where it's very prevalent of, whoa, these are two different body shapes there.
Yeah.
Um, one of the other things I was going to bring up, that kind of just came to mind, was Jefferson's Starship. So very random, if you ask me, because you think of the music from Star Wars, you think of John Williams, right? You don't really think of like any bands necessarily from like that time period or like that culture, like nobody that you'd hear on the radio, you know. And so they were trying to make this connection. I don't know if this was just somebody, I don't remember who said this, but I don't remember if they were just spitballing or if this was actually the reason why Jefferson Starship got picked. But they were referencing that this band Jefferson Starship had a song called Hyperdrive. Well, starships and hyperdrive, those are both Star Wars things. And so when they were talking about this stuff, I thought, oh, well, it must be that the song Hyperdrive is what's in the holiday special, but it's not. It's a different one of their songs. Um, so it all just seems really random. And the editing on that and the special effects on that is so strange to me. It almost seems like if you didn't have enough budget to make stars or candles at the end of the film, maybe it's because you did too much editing on the band with all these weird special effects and like glowy lights and stuff.
Or maybe they spent too much on the band.
Could be that too. Yeah, I don't know how popular they were back in the day to know how big of a price tag that really was.
Well, it also goes back to the idea of how they were, getting very popular older people in the industry to be part of this holiday special too. Like maybe if they had spent money on like Robin Williams, where they probably could have paid him a little bit less, to do some of these roles, maybe they would have had, some of that other budget.
Yeah, it's quite possible if you had gotten like a young up and comer because but then you think about us watching it, we don't really know Art Carney, but back in the day when he was super popular, is that one of the big things that drew people in to watch this?
Maybe. Could have been.
Or is it one of the things that drew maybe a non-Star Wars fan, somebody who wasn't familiar with Star Wars, to watch it? Because I know that's one thing that you and I do sometimes when we're not really familiar with what a film's going to be, but we know who the actors are, and there's certain actors that we want to see what they're doing in these films. That can be something that pulls us to watch. So maybe that's what they were hoping for, is that he would draw more of an audience to it.
Could have been. Well, between him and some of the others, like B. Arthur.
Right.
I'm sure she
Well,
had
of
other
course, the
things.
original cast.
Yeah, I'm sure she had other things, during this time because, they specifically picked her because she was popular.
Right.
I think, by the end of this documentary and everybody's talking about their feelings about the holiday special, I think really everybody does have a positive reaction to the holiday special. Like they all know that it wasn't good if you compare it to the other Star Wars films, but for what it is and what it was supposed to be, it's all right. They emphasize a lot in the early on of the documentary that people think that this is one of the worst things ever to come out, and they said it wasn't. There was a lot of other things and they showed examples too of
Oh yeah, that was I liked that part.
different variety shows that butchered other things way worse than this holiday special. So, you know, take it for what you will. I feel like the more you dig deeper into this and like look at this documentary or look at, some of the research that's out there about what went into this film, I think that's how you start to like it a little bit more. But if you just watch it once and then stick your nose up at it, well, I guess that's just kind of on you.
There's
Uh,
definitely ways to make watching this fun, sharing it with somebody who's never seen it before, or sharing it with the intent of laughing at some of the awkwardness. There, if you're choosing to hate it, then I guess that's your choice. But it's kind of one of those things where you kind of almost love to hate it.
Teachers out there, make your students in detention watch it. Maybe that'll be a good use for it. Um, all right. Well, that's our discussion on the new documentary. Again, this documentary came out, like I said, I think either this month or last month. It wasn't too long ago, called A Disturbance in the Force. It is a documentary about the Star Wars Holiday Special, how it came to be with not only people that worked on it, but also people that grew up with it. So you get a lot of perspective and a lot of cool insights. We talked a lot about the different things that we learned and appreciated. I'm sure there's other things that we haven't said that you would probably pick up on and enjoy yourself. So I would recommend it, especially at the $10. It is not that bad of a purchase for just at the regular price. Better if you get it on sale. If you enjoy this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you are notified when more of these videos drop. We are having Shoot the Sheaves at least twice a month for the year of 2024. So look out for those. Drop us a like if you like the video, and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on the holiday special. And if you've seen this documentary, what are some of the other cool things that you enjoyed, that you learned about the holiday special? And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.